What do you want me to bench me? You just got to let the ego go when you think of coming off the bench and all that.
He wants to stay. They want him to stay. Doesn't mean it'll happen.
I'm going to try to be as empathetic as possible because if you're a Golden State Warriors fan, if you grew up with the Golden State Warriors dynasty, this is going to be very difficult to hear. We have very reputable sources that have been on the money all offseason long in regards to transactions that are being made in the NBA. They're saying that it's officially the end. We're going to bring you guys all the details, man. Before we get to the content, we are around 50,000 subscribers away from hitting 1 million subscribers on this YouTube channel. So if you're enjoying the news that we're bringing to you guys, take a moment to check if you're subscribed and the notifications are on. I want to thank you guys from the bottom of my heart for the growth we've been having lately. Now that we get all that out of the way, do the intro. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? It's very difficult when you actually watch the collapse of a dynasty, especially if you happen to be a person that held that dynasty very near and dear to your heart. And in the case of the Golden State Warriors, they completely revolutionized the NBA. We wouldn't have the pace and space era if it wasn't for Steph Curry and Klay Thompson. And while Steph Curry is responsible for winning the MVPs, the Warriors offense wouldn't be what it is today if it wasn't for Klay Thompson. If it wasn't for Klay Thompson making 11 three-pointers during the 2016 Western Conference Finals, they wouldn't have made it to the NBA Finals that season. What about the game where Klay Thompson erupted for a career-high 60 points in 29 minutes? What about when Klay Thompson sunk an NBA record 14 three-pointers versus the Chicago Bulls? Or the night where he dropped 43 points on 4 dribbles? There is no question about it. The Golden State Warriors wouldn't be the dynasty they are today without Klay Thompson. And we finally started to see some of the cracks in the dynasty during their 2019 run to the NBA Finals. You see, that season, Golden State Warriors were going for a three-peat. I mean, how would they not three-peat? You have Kevin Durant, Klay Thompson, and Steph Curry on your roster, for crying out loud. It would make it all the way to the NBA Finals before Kevin Durant would tear his Achilles tendon and Klay Thompson would tear his ACL. That offseason, Klay Thompson was up for a contract extension and the Warriors had a decision to make. Klay Thompson was flirting with the idea of joining the Los Angeles Lakers. And ultimately, the Golden State Warriors relented. Despite Klay Thompson tearing his ACL, an injury that would end basketball careers in years past, the Golden State Warriors decided to bring him back on a 5-year, $190 million max contract. Thing was, the very next offseason, right when Klay Thompson was ready to return, a few days before the 2020 NBA draft, he would tear his Achilles tendon. Not only would the Warriors be without one of their franchise cornerstones for another year, not only were they paying max money to one of their franchise cornerstones just so he wouldn't play for another year, but they also had a decision to make at the number 2 overall pick. Do you go with James Wiseman or do you consider taking LaMelo Ball? Well, ultimately, the Warriors would remain faithful to Klay, opting to select the draft bust out of Memphis with the number 2 overall pick. You would think at this point that Klay Thompson owed the Golden State Warriors one. He would return and would still be a pretty solid shooter from beyond the arc. During the 2021-22 season, he would shoot 39% from 3, en route to leading the Golden State Warriors to their 4th NBA championship. And it seems like the Warriors would never be able to recover from that type of championship hangover. Last offseason, they dealt with Bob Myers stepping down and Draymond Green considering leaving, but at least in the case of Draymond Green, he was a little bit more realistic about where the Warriors were, whereas Bob Myers understood the reality of his situation, saying this.
What is the path forward for Klay Thompson and Golden State?
Well, this is why I left, first of all. A lot of times people will say it's just business, but this is not a just business situation. He was instrumental in bringing 4 championships. So it's not so simple as it's money and years. This is why it was hard for me. You get relationships with these people, especially if you've succeeded with them. And that core has been together for 12 years. And that's just so rare now. It just doesn't happen. And so this is a delicate negotiation. From what I know and see, he wants to stay. They want him to stay. Doesn't mean it'll happen. But it is a test. It's certainly a test. This is probably the first real test.
This brings us to this past year. Klay Thompson pretty much had to prove to the Golden State Warriors that he was worthy of a max contract, which already was a little bit of a stretch given the brand new CBA and given the last contract that Klay Thompson received from the Golden State Warriors. I mean, they literally gave him 2 years of a max contract just so he could ride the bench. And when he returned, he was not really the same version of himself. He was a bit of a defensive liability, but it wasn't like they were expecting anything less. This is a guy that tore his ACL and Achilles tendon. The fact that he's still able to give you 18 points per game off of 39% shooting is remarkable. But unfortunately, I'm sure we could all agree, Klay isn't a max contract player anymore. And that's okay when you're going into your age 34 season off of a torn ACL and a torn Achilles tendon. And throughout the year, you just saw boneheaded plays from Klay Thompson, like this poor foul against the Clippers towards the end of the game where you could see his teammates getting actually frustrated at him. He was feeling so insecure about his play that he thought a reporter was suggesting that he gets benched when the reporter didn't suggest anything of the sort.
Kurt talks a lot about believing in his guys, especially the starting lineup, having patience, letting guys kind of, find their game. How aware are you of that kind of patience, and how much do you value it?
What do you want me to bench me?
No. It's like that's
bench Wiggs?
I don't think I said that.
I mean, you can suggest it, it's fine. But I mean, thanks, Steve, I guess. Like, I don't know. Sometimes you earn these things like patience and time to find yourself. And I think history is on our side when it comes to that stuff.
You say that, dude. Have you heard people say that, or?
No, I don't care what people say.
And then, as some foreshadowing, eventually Klay would be brought off of the bench. Now, to Klay's credit, he did take the benching very well.
You could do two things. You could pout, or you can go out there and respond, and I thought I did the latter very well tonight. More importantly, I realized I'm going to play a ton of minutes, so you just got to let the ego go when you think of coming off the bench and all that. I mean, I embraced it, and I think that really let my guard down and let me just be myself out there. The moment you worry about what people say or what headlines will be written about being benched or the streak being broken is when you go out there and you don't play with that love, that compassion for your teammates, and that freedom that has gotten me to this point. So,
and things were looking okay for the Warriors until the end of their season. Against the Sacramento Kings in a play-in game, Klay Thompson went 0 for 10. I mean, this was such a bad game that it became a meme in NBA culture. I made videos on the Lakers, the Heat, the NBA draft, and usually there's a top comment saying,
"Don't forget that Klay Thompson went 0 for 10 against the Sacramento Kings in a play-in game."
And the reality of the situation is, this is probably the last game that we've ever seen from Klay in a Warriors jersey. Now, following the game, Steve Kerr himself said that he wanted Klay Thompson to return.
It's tough. It's tough. I love Klay so much. I mean, what he's meant to me in the 10 years we've been together. I've watched him the last couple of years, fighting the feeling of devastation from the injuries. And I've watched him this year really flip his season around with his approach and play with a little more freedom, a little more joy. So tonight was tough to see him struggle. But as I told the guys in there, that's all part of being an athlete and being an NBA player. There's incredible highs and really tough lows, and this was a tough one for Klay and for the whole team, and it hurts, so it's all part of it.
But the problem is when you're the Golden State Warriors and you're fully healthy this past year, yeah, of course, Draymond Green was acting out multiple times over this past season, but you have to be real with your situation. Steph Curry is still playing MVP caliber basketball. He could be one of those players whose prime extends until his age 38 or age 39 season. I mean, the man shot 26 points per game off of 41% shooting from three, while averaging about 12 three-point attempts per game. There's still a window of opportunity for the Warriors to compete with Steph Curry. You can't waste this final window of opportunity by feeling sentimental with Klay Thompson and offering him a max contract, which brings us to the topic of today's video. So on Saturday, Shams told us ahead of free agency that Klay Thompson's future is certainly away from the Golden State Warriors. Tweeting, "Breaking! The Golden State Warriors are preparing to lose four-time NBA champion Klay Thompson in free agency. An expected parting of ways between a legendary dynasty and a legacy player," league sources say. We're going to go into this article in just a sec, guys, but Shams would also tweet out that Klay Thompson and the Warriors are braced for the end of an era. Now, 3 teams have emerged as strong suitors for Thompson, with Golden State open to sign and trade deals to aid in his earning potential potential elsewhere. So here's what we know from Shams and Anthony Slater's article. Thompson and the Warriors have had close to no communication since the negotiating period opened for incumbent free agents nearly 2 weeks ago, and no offer has been made, team and league sources said. The Warriors, after other business, have wanted to circle back and negotiate with Thompson, but he isn't expected to be there waiting as a willing secondary priority in their summer plan, with his side feeling that the Warriors' interest in a reunion has been disingenuous. The 5-time All-Star guard is determined to find a new home elsewhere for his 14th NBA season and beyond, with both sides believing their 13-year run together is over, league sources said. Now, we have to do a little bit of detective work, because originally we thought that the Golden State Warriors' plan A was going to be Paul George, and to be honest, it's a remarkable plan A. I understand if you're looking at this and thinking, Mike, Paul George is washed. But no matter what you think of Paul George, he is absolutely an upgrade over Klay Thompson. He can play the 2, the 3, and the 4 position. He's 6'8". He is a two-way player, and he shot better from beyond the arc than Klay Thompson has. So it was certainly an upgrade to pursue Paul George over Klay Thompson. The problem is in order for that to have happened, Paul George needed to opt into his contract so the Warriors could trade for him. But unfortunately, the Golden State Warriors are officially out of the Paul George sweepstakes because he is not picking up his $49 million option with the Clippers. So Paul George is becoming a free agent, and we're going to make a separate video on that. But now that Paul George is going to be a free agent, you can't really upgrade from Klay Thompson to Paul George. So this is kind of like a double whammy for the Golden State Warriors. But you might be wondering, what teams would want Klay Thompson? Throughout the entire offseason, we were suggesting maybe the Orlando Magic. But the top 3 teams that are interested in Klay's services aren't the Orlando Magic at all. The top team is, and yeah, I know this is becoming a trend on this YouTube channel, the Los Angeles Lakers are the first team. Now, for the Los Angeles Lakers, we heard earlier today that LeBron James is opting out of his $51.4 million player option. Does this mean that, oh my God, LeBron James is going to leave the Los Angeles Lakers right after they drafted his son? Oh my God, no, it doesn't mean that at all. Apparently, LeBron James wants to give the Lakers as much flexibility to pursue other free agents as humanly possible. So he's willing to take a pay cut in order for that to happen. The reason for this is the new CBA changed everything. You can't just automatically give players the max now. The new CBA punishes teams that overspend. So, and it seems like some players understand that, like LeBron James, and other players not so much, like Klay Thompson. I expect LeBron James to return. I mean, the Lakers drafted his son and hired his podcast partner as his head coach, for crying out loud. And the Lakers are also looking into James Harden possibly, but we're gonna save that for a more Lakers-centric video. Speaking of James Harden, the second team that could be interested in Klay Thompson is the LA Clippers, which in my opinion, the Clippers don't really make much sense for Klay right now. They are so handicapped by their salary cap that in order for Klay to join the Clippers, it would have to be as a result of them letting go of Paul George, and with all due respect, that's a colossal upgrade if you're the Clippers. But Steve Ballmer might do it anyway because he has a brand new stadium opening up and he needs the Clippers to be competitive for that new stadium. The final option, and I think the most likely option for Klay Thompson, would be the Dallas Mavericks. The Mavericks already have some amazing pieces in that locker room. They have the young Derek Lively, the legendary Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, who's won a championship, and now they could bring in a shooter that has stepped up for them in big games and also has championship experience. But this doesn't solve the problem that they had against the Boston Celtics, and that's the fact that they leave a lot to be desired defensively. But through the Tim Hardaway Jr. salary dump, Mavericks have already generated enough room to offer the full projected $12.9 million mid-level on the market. The Lakers have the ability to generate the same depending on where LeBron's next deal lands and other business. Whereas the Golden State Warriors are operating in the marketplace as a full non-taxpayer mid-level exception for the first time in approximately a decade due to the anticipated departure of Thompson and the potential departure of Chris Paul's $30 million non-guaranteed deal, which shed $73.2 million from its books. The Warriors are open to participating in a sign and trade with Thompson to aid in his earning potential. This split is a major stunner across the league given the deep history between the Warriors and Thompson, but it's been trending this direction for a couple of seasons. As Thompson's extension talks stalled, his role shifted, the team failed to make the playoffs, the Warriors drafted Moses Moody, Brandon Podziemski, and even extended Jordan Poole, for trading him of course, and he never felt reciprocated love from management about his firm place in the franchise's plans. From Klay Thompson's perspective, I mean, I really think he's asking for too much in this particular case. I mean, at this stage of his career, Klay Thompson brings shooting, which obviously is very valued in the NBA. He has championship experience, which again, awesome, but at the same time, he's a bit of a liability defensively. Asking for max money, especially when you were injured the first 2 years of your max contract with the Warriors, to me, it just sounds like you're asking for too much. But in the case of the Warriors, it seems like there's no situation where you win here. You're either overpaying just so you can feel sentimental with Klay Thompson, or you're letting Klay Thompson walk away without really a clear contingency plan in place. If they pursued Paul George, I would have said, okay, at least you're gonna get Paul George, but they're not even getting that at this point. Let me know in the comment section down below if you're a Warriors fan, how do you feel about Klay Thompson leaving the Warriors? We're probably gonna find out what his new team's gonna be within the next 2 days. When that happens, I'll bring you guys an update video, but believe me, until then, we have some crazy updates for you guys. One of the worst trades in NBA history went down yesterday, with DeJounte Murray not even getting traded, but donated to the New Orleans Pelicans, and the return that the Hawks got is embarrassing. On top of that, Kyle Filipowski dropped in the NBA draft because teams were too creeped out by his girlfriend. I'll leave links to both of those videos in the end screen, and I'll catch you guys there. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.